So imagine two identical armies on two identical sized tables. One is green cloth with some books under it to make hills, or books stacked on it to make buildings, what have you. The other is covered in gorgeous ruined buildings or streams, woods, detailed rocks, that kind of thing. Which would you rather play on? What is up, YouTubers, gamers, and hobbyists, and welcome to this episode of Between the Battles. And it's called Terrain. It's the unsung hero. It's the unsung hero, my friends. Now, why is it we spend, as gamers, war gamers, role-playing gamers, whatever, why is it we spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on miniatures, and yet when it comes to terrain, that's often, and I do mean often but not always, and just an afterthought? See, playing, and the question I asked at the start, obviously, it's obvious you'd want to play on the table with the realistic terrain. It makes sense. It helps guide the suspension of disbelief in what you're doing, whether that's role playing or wargaming or what have you. It just does. I mean, terrain, it's not just a decoration in my view. It's the silent player at every game. And terrain really makes it stand out from the crowd. Now, every demo game I've ever played, and I've played a few over the years, whether that's been at conventions, or just at, friends' houses or people I've known's houses, and they've put on amazing tables, and some of them, they've taken, they spent a weekend building the table and that kind of thing. It's always been the terrain that makes it, because essentially at the end of the day, depending on what game you're playing, whether you're playing a war game on a 6x4 or a 8x4 or whatever, or a skirmish game on a 4x4, or even just a role-playing game, just around the kitchen table, it's the terrain, it's the maps, it's all these little things which really make or break the enjoyment for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, when it comes to role-playing, and now I know we can play theatre of the mind, and that's how we used to play in the old days for years and years and years, and that's amazing too. That's a whole other video topic, really. So for me, it's the quintessential option for helping you get into character, get into the mindset for the game you're playing, whatever. Right, okay, so I have a question for you, just as a bit of fun, really. You don't even have to answer it, you just think about it. And that is, what's the oldest piece of terrain you still use? I can tell you mine. It was a one I made myself, piece I made myself. Well, actually, if you say the oldest piece, there's two. I still use them both today. Well, when I play. One is the Sanctum Imperialis for Warhammer. I don't think you could still buy that even, but I just loved it. Built it, painted it, been on many a Warhammer table and War Machine table, and could possibly be in a Wrath and Glory role-playing game, who knows. And the other is one I made myself of a Hobbit hill, for Lord of the Rings, that type of thing, or just any generalistic Middle-earth gaming I chose to do. So that's the two. I don't know which one is the oldest. It could be either of them. I'd say probably the oldest is the Sanctum Imperialis, just because I would have, and I don't know for certain, but I'm fairly convinced I would have bought terrain and built it first before I made it. Because when I was talking in the little intro snippet there, the whole green cloth with books under it to make it look like hills, that was kind of a thing back in my day. I mean, people that are new to the hobby now probably be thinking, what? What on earth are you talking about? I'm playing on the floor as well. I can remember playing on the living room floor, using books, or my bedroom floor most often. Played on the living room floor a couple of times, I suppose, over the years growing up, depending where I was living. And even in the garden once when I was kids, and we're talking like a long time ago. But using things like indoors, it was like using things like books stacked up to simulate buildings or corners of buildings or corridors or whatever. In the garden, it was a bit easier. It was kind of more natural terrain, and that always looked more realistic. Trouble was, though, in the garden, you used to end up losing your soldiers. Or, dog ran off with them and started burying them somewhere else in the garden. That's, so just have a think about it. What's the oldest piece of terrain? Now, talk about realistic terrain or terrain that's designed purely for gameplay. And what I mean by that is purely for gameplay could be something like one of these books with maps in that you just flip over, and the artwork is incredible. The mats you can buy. I mean, they look amazing, and they're practical. They're best suited for gameplay or quick play, quick setup. Or you can go the whole hog and do realistic terrain, like, actual 3D mountains and things like that. That requires another level, or the next level of time and patience and dedication. But it is out there. Let me tell you, it is out there. And it is entirely doable. So, now I want to talk about the single terrain piece I've created that's been the most memorable for me. There is one, actually. And it's no longer in existence, unfortunately, so I can't show you it. It was the first. Before I got back into the hobby, really. After I'd been, medically retired. They call it medical retirement. I just got laid off for, medical reasons, really. Because I'm back at work now. But anyway, enough of that. Where I worked at the time, which was Royal Mail, they laid me off, basically. And I decided to, because I'd recently had my diagnosis of MS and that, and I thought, well, I'm unemployed. Whilst I'm looking for work, I need something to do, a hobby. And I thought that hobby was going to be writing. And I started writing a book. This is how I got into the hobby in the first place. I started writing a book, and it came to this fight scene in a wooded area. Not a forest per se, but more of a woodland, really. Maybe slightly smaller. And I just couldn't think. But I knew what the landscape looked like in my mind's eye, but I couldn't put it into words for where each character was standing, who would see what, and who would be hidden from who. So I thought, I know. I'm going to make this set piece. I wasn't even thinking about wargaming or role-playing or anything else. I just thought, I'm going to build it like they do with like model railways, scenery makers, and they are brilliant, aren't they? And I thought, I'm going to build it. I tried making it on a sheet of MDF. It turned out pretty disastrous. So disastrous that I ended up binning it, scrapping the whole lot. If I'd have had the space, I suppose I should have kept it and looked back on it always as a reminder of how far I've come. But that piece has sparked so many ideas for future, not just stories, but games. I suppose you could interlace the two there. but ideas for at that specific scene in a game or that area, because it was like a, so there was something mystical about that woodland. So that would be my most memorable bit of terrain. Now, the other thing with the terrain is, so you can, and some of you are very, very skilled at building terrain, like the terrain tutor, and there's all sorts of people out there that just do that. They're made for it. Others like to buy it. Others like to 3D print it. But it doesn't matter. As I said at the beginning, the scenery sets the tone for the game. It sets the mystery, the excitement, the anticipation. In the old days, when it was theatre of the mind, like D&D, we were lucky if we got like a piece of paper and a pencil and a rudimentary map drawn, where like little alcoves and diversions go left or right here, like it splits off, and there's a door there just crudely marked on this map. And it always was a bit, I'm trying to picture it in my mind. But it would turn out what I was thinking in my mind was different to what someone else was thinking in their mind. If we're in a dungeon, I'm thinking cold, dank stalactites or stalagmites. I never remember which, dripping from the ceiling. Someone else is imagining more of a dry, almost sealed in cell-like structure, and I'm thinking more natural, but that could have been resolved by the use of terrain. So we're all essentially playing different games in our minds with that. Whereas if you have the terrain out in front of you, which is what I intend to do in my up and coming RPG campaign, I'll have sets done, like little chapters of where the characters get to. Whether I play in between them, I don't know. That's another matter. But it will be the terrain which will help guide me through that, and that's as a solo player. So if you're playing with other people, I mean, look at some of the games of Marvel Crisis Protocol, for instance, which is a skirmish game. But the terrain in that game is so vital, so important. It's got to be good. And I don't think that's limited to just superhero games, although that seems to be where I first discovered it. Some games, some tables, they use the same terrain, session after session after session. That can become a little boring. So, you can change it up. It doesn't take a lot to change it up. I managed to change up a game. I made a couple of crude, but I was very proud of them. I don't know. I've still got them somewhere. Just rocks out of not polystyrene, but foam type stuff. Anyway, I shaped them into a couple of rocks, boulders, 3 I think there were altogether, and I stuck them down on these little bits of MDF I had, and I painted them up. They look really good. Put flock over for the grass and burnt grass and all this. And just adding that to the table, those 3 things, which was no bigger than like a coaster for your mug of tea or whatever, but that big or that size roughly. And it changed the entire feeling of the game. Some games I play, and I haven't played for a little while, but if you play like a sci-fi game and you're on board a ship, I like to see corridors. So that's where I'll be delving into my Space Hulk games and kind of utilizing the terrain boards from there, because the corridors, the Space Hulk corridors, are fantastic, and the artwork is brilliant. And I also have sci-fi maps as well, and it goes really well there. And I have some MDF corridors too, so it really, really makes it. You just put that on the table, and it slows the game down, which is another great point for role playing. And I'm not talking about wargaming here. Terrain can slow the game down, and it will do that because it will, if you're in the right mindset, it will slow your mind down whilst you take in the terrain, and you become appreciative of it, and you start looking for things like line of sight. Do you have a laser, on those laser pointer things? Can soldier X see enemy soldier B? Can he see him or her? No, damn, they're just behind that tree trunk, And if you get down and look, can you actually see any part of them? No, can't see their gun or their flag they're holding or anything. So there'd be no reason to shoot at them. Whereas if you're just putting books under green cloth or whatever, you're kind of just making it up a little bit. And to me, slowing the game down makes the game more memorable. It makes you more appreciative of it, especially when it comes to role playing. And it's vital to slow the games down when it comes to role playing and combat. Now let's move on to combat, because that's like the mainstay of a war game is combat. No matter how strategic it is, it always comes down to combat at the end of the day. And there again, if you're playing a role playing game, there will often be a time where you will encroach upon combat. Whether you're playing a dungeon crawler, D&D dungeon crawler, or a mystery game such as Call of Cthulhu set in modern times, there is a chance, there's a small chance, and even if you're just investigating, having the terrain makes it all the more real. Makes you think, well, I'm going to look in that chest of drawers, I'm going over there to that bookcase, I'm going to look behind some books. Whereas if it's just described to you, you might not know that a certain thing is there, and the game master might say, well, there was an unopened letter, tucked down the side of a chair. So what chair? If you don't have that there, you're not going to see it. You're not going to think of it, and it just, I don't know, it just detracts from the game. This is my own interpretation of terrain, but in my humble opinion, terrain makes or breaks any game, period. All right, so that's, like I said, it's not just decoration, it's an unseen character, it's a silent player in every game. And hopefully this has given you something to think about for yourself. Don't forget the question I asked about, your oldest piece of terrain. Just little things to think about. What is the oldest piece you still own? Why do you own it? Do you still love it? Is it still great? Do you still play with it? Or do you just have it on the shelf and look at it, having fond memories? Is it just a flat piece of printed board from a board game? That can be a thing too, It depends. Depends on what the game is, on what you've been doing. So do like this video. If you like the video, it helps me big time. Share if you can, because that's a huge one if you can share. Sometimes you get a hype button if you're allowed to hype so many videos, and that pushes your video beyond the algorithm. So if you could just hype my videos when you come across them, if you've still got the hype option left. I think you can do 3 times a day. You can hype videos, three videos a day. So if you're able to, please give my video a hype. If not this one, then another one. But definitely like. Anyway, guys, thank you for this amazing little beyond between the battles. I'll see you guys on another video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.